I'm Greg.
I'm Kate.
I'm Colin.
I'm Maddie.
And we are the Village People. In our case is the Rotary Cove Beach.
Anne-Marie Thompson is the branch manager at the YMCA Goddard Huron facility, and she's noticed that at the Rotary Cove Beach they're in desperate need of a new strategic budgeting plan. And this is primarily due to the fact that they have no long-term revenue stream. They are financially dependent on the town of Goddard, and Thompson herself is the only director at the Cove. So despite the fact that they are a nonprofit organization, they really need a new source of revenue. The YMCA's mission says three things, the first of which is that they wish to have strong families, and this can be seen at the beach through the fact that they have a very heavy presence of lifeguards, which shows that they are a safe and family-oriented beach. The second says that they wish to have strong youth, and at the beach about 60% of their patrons are youth. The third says that they wish to have a strong sense of community, and this can be seen through the fact that most of the visitors at the beach are the exact same visitors as the YMCA Goddard Huron facility.
So looking at the current market, we found that their primary consumers are local residents and members of surrounding communities, as well as tourists just visiting Goderich. Their target audience are families and children, as the Cove is a place for leisure and relaxation. However, anyone who is looking to have a good time is more than welcome. They have built up a strong reputation for safety with their lifeguarding. However, with so many beaches around, it is a very competitive market.
Moving on to the Cove's financial position. Its primary source of revenue comes through memberships and administrative incomes. Its primary expenses are through salaries, wages and benefits, as well as facility costs. The biggest change in terms of revenue is a significant decrease of about $25,000 in the government grant it receives from the town. And since the Cove is not profitable on its own, it is highly dependent on the town for a lot of its funding.
So for their SWOT analysis, some of the strengths that we recognized were that they have their qualified and reliable lifeguards as they go through extensive training. They have no discrimination towards lower income families, as it is a nonprofit organization with free of charge admission, as well as they are under the credible corporation of the YMCA. Some of the weaknesses would include that they have no executive team and that it's only Anne-Marie Thompson, and that it is a costly staff and training procedures for the lifeguards. Opportunities would include, it's in a well-known tourist destination of the town of Goderich, and the town of Goderich is also a large supporter with the grants that they receive every year for funding. And the upcoming election could be considered both an opportunity and a threat, as the grants could be lowered or heightened based on what the council thinks of Rotary Cove in the upcoming years. Another threat would also include that the sole revenue stream is coming from the town, and that it is a competitive market with basically the same thing that they're doing in Ontario.
So these are 6 options in which we evaluated for the case. The first of which is hiring a full-time student. Second is outsourcing to a private firm. Third is charging admission. Fourth is installing volleyball courts. Fifth is implementing day camps. And finally is maintaining the status quo. So the decision criteria which we use to analyze each of these options, the first of which is analysis of the mission, which again is keeping it friendly for families, youth, and the community. Straying from the mission would disassociate the Cove with the traditional values associated with the YMCA. We scored this on a scale of -5 to +5. The -5 meaning it does not adhere at all to the Cove's mission, +5 meaning it adheres perfectly. And for an option to be considered, it must score a 3 or higher.
The second decision criteria that we use to judge our options has to do with the fact that the town of Goderich is a very old town, so it's developed a really distinct, family-oriented and relaxed image. So for an option to be considered, we want it to relate well with the town's image. So each option is scored again on a scale of -5 to 5, with a -5 meaning that it adheres not at all to the town's image, and a +5 meaning that it adheres perfectly. And again, for an option to be considered, it has to get a 3 or higher on that scale.
Revenue generated is an important part in the decision criteria, as it creates and it shows funds for the YMCA and how they can be financially stable and also how they can improve their community. This will be measured through Canadian dollars, and it must create at least $20,000 per year. Cost to implement is similar. If the cost yields too expensive, then there may not be a point in supplying that project. This will also be measured in Canadian dollars, and it must not exceed more than $15,000 to create.
And our final decision criteria was based on time to implement. So we decided to base solely on Anne-Marie Thompson's time, as it is limited, and Rotary Cove isn't her only project on the go with the YMCA. So this would be evaluated based on weeks, and it should not exceed 12 weeks to implement.
So the first option that we came up with is to hire a full-time university student to take over Thompson's jobs. This would include Thompson training them during the spring months and then having them work full-time in the summer months. So for this option, there are more pros than cons, the biggest being that a university student would be a lot more likely to be motivated and to have more free time than Thompson, but they would most likely have a lack of experience and skills in the area. So this option only scored in 3 on the adherence to the town's image, simply because a university student coming in with not a lot of experience doesn't go very well with the town's image. But it does bring in about $22,000 in revenue through government grants and other rentals at the beach. Our second option is to outsource to a private firm. This would be hiring a firm to look after all of the Cove's marketing and strategies. Again, this would bring in a fresh perspective, similar to a university student coming in, but it would relate to a loss of control from Anne-Marie at the Cove. This option only scored a 2 in both the adherence to the YMCA's mission and the town's image, simply because a private firm wouldn't necessarily know all of the town's goals, but it only takes about 4 weeks to implement.
Our third option is charging admission. A huge pro in this is that there will be less reliance on community donations and government funding, and it also just promotes growth for future projects. A huge con as well would be that many families aren't aware of the change and they may be deterred from going back to this beach. Looking at adherence to the YMCA's mission, we rated it a 2, mainly because although the YMCA has charged similar events in the past, it doesn't really incorporate their mission, which is to implement everyone's family and allow for the community to come together. Revenue generated, we found that looking at the old attendance records, if we charged adults $3 and children $2, we could generate up to $80,000 a year. Cost to implement is just rented booths and barriers, which rakes up to about $10,000.
So for our fourth option, it would be the installation of volleyball courts. This would just be taking a portion of the beach away and putting in the 2 large volleyball courts, as well as implementing a summer volleyball day camp, which would create revenue. So a major pro for this would attract more foot traffic, both young and old, and the day camps would obviously create a better name for them with the healthy lifestyle that it would be including. A major con would be that obviously that it is taking away a portion of the beach. For the YMCA's mission, it adheres to it pretty greatly, as it does promote the healthy lifestyle that they like to include in their projects, as well as it is a free of charge thing if you're just using volleyball courts and not incorporating the summer day camps. Cost to implement would only be around $7,000, and time to implement would only be 4 weeks. For our fifth option, it would just a broadened version of the option 4 volleyball courts. It would be incorporating day camps into their summer, so that would be including volleyball, swimming, surfing, arts and crafts, etc. So a major pro for this, again, that it promotes the healthy living that the YMCA likes to see in their projects, as well as the YMCA has a great volunteer program, so they could be hiring volunteers rather than paying employees per summer. A con for this one, again, would be that you have to hire and get someone to direct the day camp, as Anne-Marie has limited time and it is a big project. It adheres to the YMCA's mission as a 4, just because it does cost money and that would not accommodate the lower income families. And revenue generated would be around $30,000, charging kids $300 per week, and time to implement would only be around 8 weeks.
Final option is maintaining the status quo, which is just keeping the current strategy that is running under. So some pros with this is that it would not take any time to implement and there would not be any additional costs associated with it. However, on the con side, the Cove has proven to be unprofitable under its current strategy, and thus if it retains it, it would most likely stay the same. So the decision criteria, we rated it a 5 on the town's image, as that's how we felt that it currently rates, and we rated it a 3 on adherence to mission. As though it currently does meet a lot of the criteria, there are no new actions which are geared towards families or communities. And obviously there would be no additional revenue generated or additional costs associated with it, and it would not take any time to implement. So this is the evaluation matrix, which is a breakdown of everything that we looked at for all the options. And as you can see, adding volleyball courts and running day camps scored very similarly. However, we decided to recommend running day camps as we felt it was a broader version of adding the volleyball courts.
Just to reiterate what Greg said, we would definitely suggest implementing the fifth option of running day camps, which also includes the fourth option of installing volleyball courts. And this is just because it definitely brings in a high revenue but has low costs and takes a short amount of time to implement. And it also adheres very well to the YMCA's mission and Gottage's image. So it's a good long-term solution, and if it works well this summer, then the Cove could even implement it for more weeks in future summers.
So we've just going to put together a timeline of the big events that are happening until the option is created. So on April 14th, we are going to start the construction of the beach hut. And April 30th, we are going to order surfboards, supplies, t-shirts, swim gear, anything we need to get ready for the camps. On May 1st, we start advertising the new project just so people are aware of what's to come. And then May 14th, we start staff training, and May 30th, we finalize and prepare for the opening day on June 1st.
So thank you guys for listening to our presentation, and if you have any questions about Rotary Cove, we're free to ask now.